Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3. In the first 2 episodes, we looked at ways to increase your access to fresh, healthy food by encouraging you to grow something. In this episode, we're going to talk about the idea of food waste and how it impacts your food security. Specifically, we're going to explore ways you can get more food for less money and how you can use that food more efficiently. Then, we're going to look at a creative way of reducing food waste that comes to us from the past by talking to 2 ladies who know a great deal about the lost art of gleaning. Are you ready? Let's do this. Food waste is a huge problem that directly impacts food security for everyone, everywhere. The sad reality is, we humans waste a lot of food, and that's a problem, both for us and for the planet. In this section, we're going to focus on how we interact with food, with the goal of reducing our food waste and creating healthier, better tasting food, while we tread more lightly on the planet. So, how do we start? Over the past 10 years, I've figured out there are 4 keys to reducing our personal food waste. Here we go. Eat it, use it, save it, share it. Allow me to unpack that for you. Eat it. In this case, I'm not just talking about the old clean your plate lecture. While that is important, I'm actually talking about looking at food to see how we can eat all of it. A really easy example is beets and beet greens. When I was a kid, I ate beets all the time. But I didn't realize you could actually eat the beet greens until a few years ago, and now it's my favorite part. So, wherever possible, eat it all. We get more food and less waste, and that's good for everybody. Yay! Number 2, use it. There are lots of ways you can reduce food waste and create better food for yourself by making sure you use all of what you have. Really simple example. After you eat the roast chicken, use the chicken bones to make soup stock. The soups you make will taste so much better, and you got the soup stock part for free. Win-win. Save it. Saving food can range from freezing that extra soup you just made, or some spaghetti sauce, or maybe canning peaches or making jam or pickles. The trick is to find the techniques that work with your skills and your budgets, and then go from there. Before you know it, you'll be saving food like a pro, and your food waste will have dropped an absolute ton. The planet will be very grateful, and we'll all thank you. And last, but very not least, the best way to reduce food waste is to share it. Share the food you make or extra food you buy with your neighbors and friends. This is something we humans have done naturally since the dawn of time, and it's something we really need to bring back. Not only will less food get wasted, you'll eat better, and so will your friends and your neighbors. And that's a very good thing. So, that's it. Eat it, use it, save it, share it. If we all do a little bit, things get better for everyone. Alrighty. Now that we've examined our own personal food waste, let's take a wider view and look at food waste from a retail or commercial perspective. When I first started learning about food waste, I came across a documentary called Just Eat It, and it completely changed the way I looked at food. The film followed a husband and wife team who decided they would eat only food that was designated as food waste for 60 days, and the results were startling. Their journey took us inside retail food and showed just how much good food was getting wasted every day. After watching the film, I became inspired to see what I could do as well. One of the most important things I learned from the documentary was that the practice of labeling food with best before dates had nothing to do with food safety and everything to do with moving more food product. Armed with that knowledge, I started actively looking for deals. And the result was a win-win, where we got more food and less food ended up in the landfills. The key with buying food that has been on the shelf a little bit longer is to use it, save it, or of course my personal favorite, share it right away. That way none of the food gets wasted, which is kind of the whole point. The problem with this plan is that getting to the store and combing through the aisles for those deals can be very time-consuming and challenging. Thankfully, technology is being used by very clever folks to address exactly that issue, making the process of finding food deals a whole lot easier. Apps like Flash Food allow users to see what food items are being marked down without even going to the store. It's really quite brilliant. The store creates a list of available items and puts them online. You go through and buy what you like, and then pick it up when you're ready. The store gets a double win because they're going to sell more of their marginal food, and they create yet another reason to bring customers into the store. You, the consumer, win because you get an easier way to find cheaper food, and of course my favorite, the planet wins because less food gets wasted. It's definitely worth checking to see if there are apps or online ways in your local area to access food that's been marked down. And if there isn't, think about starting one. It doesn't look like it's all that hard. Of course, there are also a multitude of other everyday ways to change potential food waste into fabulous food used. Pick up that day-old bread at your local bakery. Or maybe offer to buy the less than perfect fruits and veggies from your local greengrocer or farm stand. Indeed, there are literally an infinite number of ways we can engage with our local food systems to reduce food waste. The key is to become more mindful of our own food waste and then transfer that awareness to the community level. In this last section, I'd like to switch from looking at things we can do individually and explore a wonderful way of reducing food waste that comes to us from the past. I first encountered the concept of gleaning in an art history course nearly 40 years ago, and I was instantly fascinated by the elegant simplicity and efficiency of it. Quite simply, gleaning is the age-old practice of folks going into the farm fields after the formal harvest is done to gather up usable food that might have been missed. It's simple, it's logical, and I love it. As such, I've watched with great joy the reemergence of gleaning around the world. Like so many things that involve food and community, the rewards of gleaning go far beyond the mere collecting of food. To learn more about how gleaning is working in our modern world, I talked to two amazing ladies who are actively involved in gleaning right here on PEI. Let's take a listen. Ann Mazer has been gleaning with the PEI Food Exchange for the past 8 years, and I asked her to explain how gleaning works with their program.
In my experience, there are usually about 8 people who are gathered here at the farm center, and we travel out together to wherever the farm is. And we work for a couple of hours, and then we sort the food, and then we come back. Somebody delivers it to places like the Salvation Army or the food bank. And then we go home.
Next, I asked Ann how the food gets divided.
And 1/3, well, this is how gleaning works. 1/3 of the produce that is picked or harvested goes to the farmer. 1/3 goes to a service center like the food bank or the soup kitchen or Salvation Army. We gave a lot of food to the Salvation Army. And 1/3 goes to the gleaner. Often gleaners pick more than they need, and so more goes to the service places than 1/3. And sometimes the farmers don't want any of it. So we've collected hundreds and hundreds of pounds at each glean.
I asked Ann what kind of foods they've gleaned over the years.
Potatoes, beans, green beans, yellow beans, dried beans, carrots, onions, as I said, spinach, rhubarb, And then there were some unusual kinds of radishes one time that we went to get. Cabbage. Gosh, you name it. Not lettuce. I don't remember ever getting lettuce.
As we talked, I was surprised to learn that gleaning is not limited to the end of the growing season, and described 2 examples where gleaning was used during the middle of the growing season.
Even if they need help with weeding, sometimes that's been an exchange. We've gone and weeded a carrot section, for instance, and works the same way. That's our input to the farmer, and then we get to take whatever it is that we've harvested. Another time a farmer was ill and couldn't harvest his spinach, so he asked for our help. And we went and harvested his spinach, and then the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 situation was the same.
Of course, I had to ask Anne what she loved most about gleaning.
My favorite part is being out in the field with other people, and there's usually some conversation, but even if there's not, it's like being in a collective, and I love getting my hands dirty, and it's just a lovely way to spend a morning.
To finish up, I asked Anne if she would recommend gleaning to other folks.
Absolutely, and it's a great way. Like one year our carrot crop didn't work. We didn't have carrots, and there happened to be a carrot glean, and I got enough carrots for my winter.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Now that we've covered the basics of how gleaning works, I want to look a bit closer at what it takes to start a gleaning program. What are some of the larger community benefits of gleaning, and what resources exist to help folks get started gleaning? Pauline is the harvest manager for the gleaning program at the Food Exchange. She's also the person behind the Gleaningers Handbook and a wealth of information about gleaning. Pauline was off island while I was creating this episode and very kindly agreed to chat with me anyways. The sound quality isn't perfect and there's no video, but I figure it's a small price to pay to be able to capture really valuable knowledge. So, with that in mind, I started by asking Pauline what it takes to get a gleaning program going.
So in essence, it's quite an easy process to start a gleaning program. Any community can do it. Any group of people could, small group of 3 to 5 committed people. And then when you need to have 10 or 20 people in the field to harvest crop, you can do a call out either on social media or through email or through a telephone tree. And so, any community group, whether it be the Lions Club, the Shiners Club, it could be a faith-based group or just a group of friends that want to identify farmers in your area where you can go and say, would you mind if we come and collect your leftover crops? And again, it helps to have people, partners or farmers in your group, to talk in the farmers' terms.
Besides farmers and gardeners, I asked Pauline who else would make a good gleaner.
We've been blessed that people have come from like age of 2 to 80. So, there's always something that somebody can do. Like you may not be able to carry, 30 pounds of something. There's lots of things that we need people to do, and that, making sure that people are doing things safely, making sure that the first aid kits are there, that people are staying where they're supposed to in the field. So, weighing the produce when it's coming back out of the field, we weigh it. And so there's lots of chores that can be done, even if somebody doesn't feel like they can, do the hard physical stuff. So it's really something that everybody can participate in.
Listening to Pauline talk about gleaning, I started imagining what it would be like out in the fields and thought about how nice it would be to be able to take my dad with me. I asked her, do seniors get involved in gleaning a lot?
Well, to be honest, our grandmothers and our grandfathers are some of the most valuable people in the gleans. Certainly in terms of how to store the food and how to prepare the food. And even in terms of which foods to take. For example, you don't want yellow beans that are tough, for example. And so grandmas and grandfathers know those things, and good gardeners know those things, but really the intelligence is held in our grandparents.
As our conversation began to shift towards the community impacts of gleaning, I asked Pauline for examples of some of the things she had seen over the years.
And one of the things that was really quite fascinating was we did a gleaning with a school group, a grade 6 school group. And now on Prince Edward Island, a lot of our classrooms have 20 or 25% newcomers. And so it was amazing how the language skills, so the kids might not know what a beet was, but when they could go out to the field and see the beet and put it, stand up and say, yeah, this is a beet. Oh yeah, we eat these in Russia, but I didn't know what it was called. So it's amazing. And I think that is something that we'd like to explore more, is to have gleaning as part of the school program. And also the kids loved the fact that they could take the food home and prepare it with their parents or with their grandparents. They were helping other people in the community, that 1/3 of what they had picked would be going to people who might not otherwise be able to afford fresh produce. So there was lots of learnings from that aspect.
I love that example. The idea of taking a classroom of kids out to a farmer's field and getting them to be able to glean is amazing. Learning about food, learning about how it's grown, communicating with each other, learning language, connecting. Brilliant. I had to know more. I asked Pauline for just maybe one more story.
Also been really interesting to have newcomers in our gleans, because they harvest and use the food quite differently than we do sometimes. And so that builds a cultural exchange, again, around the common food of the common theme of food. So actually, the power of food to build community really becomes quite strong when you're in the field, and when you're gleaning, and when you're talking about food and what you're going to do with it, and how you're going to process it, and how you're going to eat it. It's quite wonderful as a community builder.
While we were talking, Pauline explained why it's essential to have farmers or experienced gardeners as part of your gleaning program. These folks are important as liaison to the farmers because they speak the same language. They can also tell if a field is suitable for gleaning and how best to glean it. Their knowledge can prevent damage to fields or crops from the gleans, and they keep the relationships with the farmers positive. It's that kind of understanding of farming and agriculture that prompted the creation of the Gleaningers Handbook. The handbook is available free as a PDF on the Food Exchange website, and I asked Pauline to describe it for us.
Year of gleaning, we decided we would do a training manual, or a handbook, we call it, and that sort of gives a checklist of what the harvest manager and the harvest administrator should be doing, and it also gives a release form. We talked to a lawyer to find out what we should include in that release form, and again, that basically says that the gleaners, won't sue the volunteers, won't sue the organization, won't sue the farmer, and these are sort of the needs of the 21st century, because our society has become a lot more litigious. So there's an example of that in our gleaning handbook. And also some crops, normal crops that we would glean, it gives some instructions on how you should harvest those crops. Those would be the most normal crops that we would glean. And then, a checklist, a quick one-page checklist for gleaners to make sure that they're doing the things that they should be doing. We also try to keep new gleaners with more experienced gleaners, a buddy system, so that there's, to help ensure no damage to the crops. And so the Gleaningers Handbook is a handbook that communities can take and look at and see what suits them and take from that handbook in order to start their own gleaning programs.
Speaking with Pauline, it was easy to understand the appeal of gleaning. While it helps to have a few folks with a bit of special knowledge, gleaning is something that reaches across ages and cultures, and it helps join us together. It's a great way for folks to learn, connect, share, and grow. With all her gleaning experience, I couldn't resist asking Pauline what she loved most about gleaning.
What I love most about gleaning is the joy that it brings people. It is absolutely fun in the field. The learns are incredible. What you learn in the field, what you learn from the farmers, what you learn what grows on Prince Edward Island and how it grows, and what everybody's going to do with their food. So it's a huge learning curve, and it's so much fun that it's the one thing that everybody eats. And so no matter what culture you come from, the love of food by gleaners. And then of course, the great exercise that you get and the beauty of the countryside. So there's lots to love about gleaning.
Pauline is absolutely right. There is much to love about gleaning, which is why it's making such a comeback, and I think that is fabulous. In our modern world, waste has become normalized. Yet in nature, there's no such thing as waste. Everything has a purpose. Everything gets used. Food waste is the single greatest crime we humans commit. Our planet produces more than enough to feed everyone, yet untold millions starve daily. And while we can't control what the mega food corporations do, we can control ourselves. And reducing our food waste personally and at the community level will change the world. One last thought. When Pauline and I were talking, several times she mentioned the importance of building trust, specifically between the farmers and the gleaners. The farmer must trust that the gleaners will respect the land and that they will work with it wisely. Trust is also essential when it comes to sharing food, especially with neighbors or folks you've just met. The first time you offer your neighbor some fresh-baked cookies, it might feel weird. Our society teaches us the world is dangerous and that we must be self-sufficient. I'd like to counter that. One of my favorite quotes comes from the amazing Bishop Desmond Tutu. He said that to be self-sufficient is to be subhuman. We were designed to be connected. And, like Pauline said, food is the natural connector. We all eat. So, what are we taking from this episode? We're going to eat it, use it, save it, and absolutely, most important of all, share it. Every day. And if we do so, there's a really good chance we're going to start building a better future. So that is it, good humans. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to leave a comment telling me how you reduce your food waste. Love hearing solutions that other folks are creating. A big thanks to the Food Exchange PEI and the Fund a Mentor Grant Program for their support of this video series. Also, of course, a huge thanks to those fabulous gleaning ladies, Anne and Pauline. Thank them for sharing their time and their wisdom with us. Very greatly appreciated. And last but not least, a big special thanks out to my neighbors and friends who are Cheryl, Wendy, Jessie, May, and Barb. We've built a truly glorious little food sharing network, and it feeds our souls as well as our bodies, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. And of course, I'm grateful to you too for watching. So take care of one another, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.